Hello. You're going to watch a video about Bloom's taxonomy and how to learn better and a little information about the types of memories.
He is particularly noted for leading educational psychologists to develop the comprehensive system of describing and assessing educational outcomes in the middle 15th. He has influenced the practices and philosophies of educators around the world from the latter part of the 20th century. So his contributions were in psychology, right? So he paid a lot of attention to psychology and cognitive developments and how we learn, what happens in our brain when we learn. So if we will start to speak about Bloom's taxonomy, Bloom's taxonomy consists of 6 components. As I have mentioned on the previous lesson, it is remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. So here on your picture, usually Bloom's taxonomy is described as a pyramid. So here are remember, understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, and create. On the last lesson, I was speaking about low order thinking and high order thinking. So on this pyramid, you can see that. So here, the 3 of them on the lowest part, remember, understand, and apply are the lowest, are the low order thinking skills, and the 3 which are on the highest part of the pyramid are high order thinking skills: analyze, evaluate, create. So what is remember? So when we say remember, it is associated with names, descriptions, relations, findings, list, writings, and tellings. And what is understand? Understand it is to compare, to discuss, restate, predict, translate, outline. And apply, show, complete, use, classify, examine, illustrate, solve. And we have finished with the low order thinking. And the first component of high order thinking is to analyze. Analyze means to explain, contrast, examine, identify, investigate, and categorize. So it is much more difficult than the low order thinking. The second component is evaluate, which is to decide, rate, choose, recommend, justify, assess, prioritize, and etc. And the last one is to create, which is to create, invent, plan, compose, construct, design, imagine. Bloom's taxonomy is used not only in education, not only in learning English, but in learning any subject, in learning anything. For example, when you learn something, you first remember it. Then, you memorize it. You just if somebody will tell you something, you will remember it. Yeah, okay, I know about that. Then you will understand what it is. You will compare it with other things. You will discuss it. You will guess it what it is, and so on. And then you will try to apply. Apply, it means in practice. You will apply this. Then you will analyze it. You analyze how it was good in practice. It's disadvantages and advantages. And then you will, here you have the word categorize, right? You will categorize its advantages and disadvantages, lacks and good side and bad sides. And evaluate, you will evaluate whether this idea is good, or will it useful to recommend to other people. You will justify if it is good. You will choose the good sides of this idea, and then you will create. And you will create. You will create a thing. If you had here an idea, here you will create a thing. Maybe at the first level it will be just a model, and then you will create a full idea. Okay, let us stop on each component. Here we have remembering, right? The first component, the low order thinking component. Remembering is what you remember, usually simple, short answers. If somebody will ask you about what is the capital of Kazakhstan, you will answer Nur-Sultan, okay. And what is the capital of France? Is Paris, and etc. Just names and descriptions, maybe. Here, examples. What are the names of the bones in your arm? For example, if you study biology, for example, they are only main words. For example, the next question: when did World War II begin? You just remember when it began. Definitions, just definitions. For example, theorems, rules. You just remember them. For example, what is noun? What is verb? You just remember. You will give your answers. It's like telling a rhyme, a poem. Flashcard facts. It means just facts. What is your reading assignment for next week? This is just the questions that you remember. You remember that you are going to do something on the next week. And when is your next test, and so on. The same questions here. So remembering, it is to remember, right? To memorize things, to recall things. The next one is understanding. The next stage is understanding. Moving toward in-depth understanding and being able to construct meaning. Here you don't only just remember the things, you will understand this thing. Expand on simple memorization to create a bigger picture. For example, if someone will say you about what is the capital of United States, you will say Washington, right? And then here you will say why it is Washington, when it was when it was settled, what did happen in the history of Washington, and how it looks like. You can show a picture, and this is the understanding of the word. For example, Washington. For example, here, name 3 ways in which Abraham Lincoln is considered a successful president. We know that Abraham Lincoln is the first president, right? I don't know. Maybe I made a mistake. Maybe he's not a first president. I'm not a history teacher. So, what are the recurrent themes in the movie Anatomy of a Murder? We can just remember that the new movie's name is Anatomy of a Murder. But if we are going to talk about what are the recurrent themes in this movie, then it will be understanding component of Bloom's taxonomy. How does the central nervous system coordinate movement? So in remembering, we can just know that the central nervous system coordinate movement. But in understanding, we will know how does the central nervous system coordinate movement. The next component is applying. Applying is putting your knowledge to use, implement your understanding. You have just understood the idea, and now you are going to implement your understanding. For example, what do other filmmakers tend to borrow from Spielberg's method? How might Oliver Stone have directed the film E.T.? How can you apply knowledge to a situation or a problem? Math applied to construction and business. So here we can choose how math applied to construction and business. Making PowerPoint presentations for a class, also applying. Public speaking is also applying. So you have an idea, you will understand that idea, and when you share this idea with other people, this is applying. So the next stage, the first stage of higher order thinking. Think critically about what you know. We know about what it is critical thinking. It is analyzing, synthesizing, etc. So analysis requires you to examine what you know. Do you really know? And determine how do concepts relate to one another. So how do concepts relate to one another, associations with this, between these concepts, an overall structure, be able to answer multi-phased questions, discuss topics at length and over insight. For example, why are Friday the 13th films so financially successful? So here, it is not the only that you will give an idea. You should analyze why Friday the 13th film so financially successful. You will study this movie. Are they successful financial compared to other similar films? Why not? So here we are comparing with other films and making an analysis. What roles has technology played in recent horror films? So here we have much more different questions than in previous stages. How would you classify Jason's personality and why? So here you should not only tell about Jason's personality. For example, the main actor in this movie, Friday the 13th, is Jason, right? So you should not only tell about Jason's personality, but also classify it. How would you classify Jason's personality? This means not only retell, not only remembering, it is analyzing Jason's personality and classifying it. It means also categorizing Jason's personality. The next stage is evaluating, bringing all the pieces together. Evaluating, in other words, we have two methods, right? Analysis and synthesis, right? Have you heard about analysis and synthesis? So in analysis, you divide things, you categorize things to study them. For example, if you have a pencil, here we have, if we have a pencil, we should study it, we analyze it. We just, we study each part. We divide a part and study each part. Divide a part and study each part. On this synthesis, we categorize, we bring all the pieces together. And in evaluating, or in other words, synthesizing, we bring all the pieces together. For example, what judgments or assumptions can be made after you have critiqued the information. So we make conclusions after analyzing the idea. For example, what types of storylines are popular with the horror film audience? Here I had an example of the same topic, right? About movies and about the films, to make much more interesting for you. What types of storylines are popular with the horror film audience? So here we have categorized on the previous stage the storylines which are popular, and then now we should evaluate what types of storylines are popular with the horror film audience. What are some characteristics of that type of audience? Why are those unique? So here we should make conclusions, give exact answers, because we have analyzed this topic, evaluated it, and we should make full answers, give full answers. How might Spielberg's films be different if he had been born 20 years earlier? So here, this question is very difficult, because before answering to this question, we should analyze what kind of movies there were in 20 years earlier. So we should know what kind of movies there were 20 years earlier to compare with Spielberg's movies. And the last one is creating. Creating is if the idea was about movies, about Spielberg's movies, especially about Friday the 13th, we analyzed it, we discussed it, we evaluated it, we made a synthesis, and now we should create something, especially relating to this topic. So here we should write an essay or a dissertation or a thesis work. This is the last step of Bloom's taxonomy. Here we should create, for example, write an essay detailing how Spielberg's directing style is unique when compared to others directors of his time. Prepare an audiovisual presentation illustrating the development of special effects techniques over the past 30 years. Create a website that rates horror films. What will your ratings be based on? So on this stage, we can't just do this step immediately without preparing. Before this step, we should, for example, start from remembering stage. From here, like these simple questions. we should first remember, we should first know about Spielberg, we should first have information about Spielberg and Friday the 13th, and then we should understand Spielberg, about his life, about his biography, about the movie Friday the 13th, and then here we should make what answer to these questions. What do other filmmakers tend to borrow from Spielberg's methods? How might Oliver Stone have directed film deity? And analyze these movies, analyze the topic. Here, evaluate what we have just done, make conclusions, and then create an essay, create a website, prepare an audiovisual presentation. This was the last step of Bloom's taxonomy. And also what I should add about the memories, memory about the remembering stage of Bloom's taxonomy. So there are two types of memories, short-term memory and long-term memory. We all know that we have these kind of memories. Short-term memory is very fragile, retains 7 chunks of info for about 30 seconds. Have you heard about that? We can only remember 7 chunks of info for about 30 seconds, but maybe we will have some talented people who can remember more things than we do. And the long-term memory endures without much practice, built through associations, can help to fill in gaps in short memory, term memory. And also, if you don't use it, it may you may find that you lose some of it. You can forget what you had in your memory. So there are 2 types of memory, like in a computer, right? In a personal computer, it also has a short-term memory and long-term memory. So when we turn on the computer and we just go from application to application, computer remembers which applications what was turned on, and he will keep it on turning on. So you can return to the application. And if we will turn off the computer, it will memorize all the things that you had done before. So here I had some advices for you how to learn. So how to learn, you can also use Bloom's taxonomy to learn everything. Learning takes time, we all know, but you should develop effective study practices and stick with them. You can screenshot this presentation. So again, Benjamin Samuel Bloom, he was an educational psychologist, scientist from America, and about the Bloom taxonomy. This presentation is very important for you guys. Bloom's taxonomy is part of clear and updated education nowadays. And if you are going to school, you are going to use Bloom's taxonomy. We are the future teachers, right? And we nowadays are using Bloom's taxonomy. These are stages to learn something. In every sphere, every idea must go through these stages.